And what's arguably the biggest week in professional wrestling of all time, we have Draped in Gold. Your Alex has passed to wrestling on the black and gold brands on both sides of the pond. My name is Flobo Boyce. You can check me out visually on that Facebook, that YouTube, that Twitter, and that Twitch. And also, the audio version is available wherever you do your podcast. Stand and Deliver, Prelude, all that we're discussing. And plus, some WrestleMania stuff, because frankly, it's my only wrestling outlet, so I'm going to totally do it here. But as always, I am not alone. Just last night, I was saying how much I hate this guy, but it's Thursday, so I like him again. He is the host of Elite of the Week, our sister show on the Jack Farmer Productions Network. Get up for the man himself, Jack Farmer.
Flobo, Boyce, it's WrestleMania week. How excited are you? What an incredible week we've had so far already, and we're only halfway through. I don't even know if you counted as halfway through. We're not even to that point yet. This has been such an incredible week. I love that you and I both got the memo. We both dressed up. I tried the bow tie, but don't think I'm not noticing that Kofi Kingston shirt you're wearing. And I know you did that on purpose, remembering Kofi Mania. Yeah. This is what we do it for this week. And man, like I said, we're right in the thick of things for this week's episode. I'm just buzzing, man. I'm feeling so good right now.
I've never had a situation with a pay-per-view we're going to give a recap and a preview in the same episode, but here we are, Stand and Deliver, 2 nights of fun. But before we get to that, it's NXTUK Prelude, which is interesting because in the middle of it, but in its own way, it kind of is a kickoff to its own thing. It's the first time with their intro to the WrestleMania proceedings, not to be outdone. Their main event was one of the 2 United Kingdom title defenses, Walter Ringhead around himself in his second match, or first, depending on how you look at it, of the week against Rampage Brown. Lot of meat, lot of man. We were advertised that kind of slapping action, and we got it.
Yeah, were we supposed to watch this assuming it was recorded previously, or were we supposed to watch it as if it was happening real time? I know that's one of those nerdy questions. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, NXT UK has never said they were pre-recorded, so I got to assume that this is the in-between night 1, night 2. But since the pay-per-view NXT wasn't even mentioned at all on the show, you can argue that it was done before.
Well, and the name Prelude, Flobo, this was such a good show. This was such good stuff. So much things going on. Should we just jump right into that main event?
Jump and do it. That's all you.
Listen, I'm going to gush here a little bit. I didn't see Batista, but I did see both a Beast and a Leviathan in this match.
Oh, man.
Rampage gave Walter more raw strength and cooked up athleticism than he's ever faced, and you could see that early on as he rocked the champ. Rampage was actually able to plant Walter, but chops came as they always do, landing like thunderclaps on Rampage. I say this in disbelief, though, Flobo. Rampage returned the volley and even levied some of the heaviest clotheslines around, whether you weigh them with the metric system or in pounds. But not enough has been said about Walter's in-between time, Flobo. Have you notice we just take it for granted, these small, relatively small, like thrust kicks and shots to the neck and the head and the throat. And even with all of that, even including a knee right to the face, Rampage was hitting doctor bombs on Walter, Flobo. Doctor bombs of all things. I don't believe I've ever seen anyone outmuscle the ring general ever in my life. They called this show Prelude not because it was before WrestleMania, Flobo. They called this Prelude because this was a battle between 2 monsters that hasn't been seen since the prelude of mankind in the prehistoric age. The way dinosaurs would fight for survival, Rampage Brown deserves respect for possibly getting closer than anyone else. But after this, even the undefeated Father Time must bend the knee to the great ring general, because no one is taking that title from him.
Well, that's all the time we have for this edition of Draped in Gold. That was poetic, man. I mean, but you nailed it. I mean, it was. So Walter had 2 matches this week. We'll get to the other one shortly, but this felt very in Walter's wheelhouse. This is something that we saw, just an old school throwback to how the body can bend or to break. And yes, Dr. Bombs. And if you guys don't know what Dr. Bomb is, it's a power bomb that went to medical school. No, you see Dr. Bomb before. It's a really hard move to slam someone down. And so to see that happen with so much weight in hand was interesting. Now, before we went live, we said last week, I mentioned this, that we're going to count the chops that Walter dished out. And I said the over-under was 17. Jack wisely said the over. And I go, well, we had 19 chops in just one of the matches this week from Walter. He was a chopping machine. And this was the one where his hand wasn't hurt. So imagine that. What a fantastic display of Walter's prowess.
I mean, let's hope he never starts super kicking, because those slaps are he's gonna cut himself down.
Man, I can just imagine Andy separate. And his head has been knocked clean off. My word.
No, but I mean, just what an amazing performance from both of these guys. I don't know what's next for Rampage, but I mean, he really showed, like, he basically said, I'm going to match you strength for strength. I'm going to go with you, but Walter's just undeniable. I think that's the kind of word you say and we throw around as pundits and analysts, like that he's undeniable, but really, you just can't. He's undeniable. I don't know a better way to say it. He is simply unbeatable. Whether it's a kid trying to take him off his game plan, whether it's Dragunov getting emotional, whether it's just a pure powerhouse like Rampage, he's unstoppable, Flobo. I can't imagine a scenario where he doesn't come out on top if he was able to topple Rampage.
What up, Flap? I made sure Jack saw your meme you sent to him before.
Oh, thanks, Flap.
I want to say this. I can't think of anyone pinning Walter. If Walter in an alternate universe is not champion, it would have to be submission or not even showing up and being stripped. I don't see anyone on the planet taking Walter down for more than 3 seconds. I mean, it has to be like a force of nature altogether.
Listen, anyone that understands parallel dimensions knows that every single potential possibility is out there in another dimension, except the possibility that Walter loses. Even that is completely unbreakable. Even across all dimensions, across all timelines, Walter wins. And if he doesn't win, then Walter from another dimension comes in, wins, and fixes that.
That's why there's two Imperiums, actually. There's just the UK Imperium and the NXT. We got to move on because we have so much stuff to cover today. But that match will definitely be in the canon of Walter matches, except for one or two, tend to be like a different category altogether. This one's in that. It definitely feels very like, I don't want to say manly, but I felt like a couple of hairs on my chest grew up for that one. So,
yeah, sure.
But moving on, this is actually one of the matches that I didn't think much of going into it, but a lot of fallout happened that raises questions. So, women's tag team action: Miko Satomura and Amelia McKenzie taking on Isla Dawn and Kaylee Ray. Had a lot of questions going in about this, about Isla Dawn's alliance to Kaylee Ray. Is Satomura here to really establish her dominance, or is this kind of like the swan song in her career? The answer to this is we got an intense match. Kaylee Ray does not help Isla Dawn out. And Ava Valkyrie, the presumptive number one contender, eyes Satomura. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things on my mind. Jack Farmer, walk me through your thoughts about what you saw today in this division.
First and foremost, I love the fact that the women's division said, we may not be in the main event, but we are not going to get overshadowed. We're going to bring it as well. I thought that there was such great teamwork all around, and what a way to build up a division. You had a situation where Kaylee Ray had cleared everyone out with win after win after win, and now we've got 3 new women who could all be contenders based off of this match alone. I was really impressed by both Mackenzie and Dawn, by the way, for stepping up and going from kind of being afterthoughts in the division to really looking like they belonged in the ring with 2 of the biggest names in women's wrestling internationally. The story here, though, as you alluded to, Valkyrie showing up at the end, looking like we may get Mako Satomura versus Valkyrie, a match that I'm excited to see, and a match I know that Kaylee Ray is excited to see, because that's the only reason she wouldn't have jumped in the ring and attacked Mako and stopped the pin on Isla Dawn from happening in the first place. Kaylee Ray wants to help the women's division. She didn't want to take out Mako and ruin that whole possibility, so she let the pin happen so that we could get another great match down the road. Just another great champion doing great things.
Want to give a shout out to Adam Ghazi, Will Five Stud, Lamsonville, yo, Flap. You guys are all great for coming into the chat here. But the question I have is this: Ava Valkyrie is the only undefeated superstar on NXT's women's roster. I mean, the confidence must be sky high. Why Satomura? Why not go for the person holding the richest prize in your division? It just feels like a weird side quest where I really want to see Valkyrie take on Kaylee Ray.
So this is a very interesting point, and I'm really glad you brought it up because they have mentioned, and we've seen over the past few weeks, even though Valkyrie gets win after win after win, she's really racking these up. She does have a little bit of a confidence issue. So it doesn't surprise me that she doesn't want to go after the champion just yet. But that also said, on the other side of things, I think that actually just goes to show just how big of a name Meiko Satomura really is. The fact that having a chance to have a match with her does actually equate or is just as big as having a match with someone like Kaylee Ray, who's the champion. I'm going to compare it like this. I think it's very similar to when someone challenges The Undertaker at WrestleMania instead of going for the title here. And what makes this seem really special to me is Valkyrie's someone I've always compared to Goldberg. So the idea of like a in their prime, young, up-and-coming Goldberg challenging the legendary Undertaker, we're basically getting an analogy of that. If this happens, this could be one of the biggest matches in the women's division in NXTUK that we've possibly ever seen.
Damn. I hate the fact that you're not only right, but you use a Goldberg analogy to prove your point. I'm all conflicted. No, I think that makes sense to me. I think I totally will buy that. If you're Ava Valkyrie and the world's your burrito or proverbial oyster, making sure you have another notch on your feather boa shoulder pad before you head over to the top of the division, why not? And that's a match I want to see either way. I mean, the more of the women that get in the ring with Satomura, the more I'm willing to show up and they take my money or take my Peacock money or whatever. Elliot Fletcher says, triple threat for the women's title for Meiko and Ava Valkyrie. Hope we get Pete and Millie together at some point with reuniting Bruiser mates. Now, that is an interesting proposition. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm not sure how much content of that is on YouTube, but I was looking at some of that stuff. It is definitely next level, and it definitely feels like UK needs that thing. I hate to say this because I'm a big fan of UK. I'm a big advocate for UK. But Walter for a long time was strictly on that brand. But with him, going to that other open door, UK really needs something that's uniquely them. Mustache Mountain isn't really tagged together all the time. Pete Dunne stateside. I think having that women's division built up the way it is now may be the killer bullet for now. Just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, you make good points. It's one of those. It's an interesting idea that the value of keeping someone solely on your brand versus having them go to another brand to sort of advertise your wares.
Right.
It's an interesting conundrum to find yourself in. But
we got joint manipulation and Heritage Cup action. Speaking of people you can't stand, though, because that's a transition, Piper Niven is changing drag stars. And I thought that was a cool segment, but I felt the inner Jack in me being all mad about this. What was your thought about that?
Yeah, the idea that you have someone who can't win the championship training someone to help them win matches just seems crazy to me. Jack Stars. That's funny. Listen, Jack Stars, he's fit. He's already in great shape. He's in fantastic shape. So to have someone come in and say the thing is you need to work out different seems crazy to me. Especially if you're someone who had about 17 shots at the championship and wasn't able to get the win yourself, Piper Niven. I think Jack Stars has the right idea. He needs to find someone. He needs to find someone who he can work with. Needs to find someone that he can grow with, someone who's going to train him on the other side of things. He's already fit. He's already strong. He needs someone who's smart, Flobo. He needs someone with a game plan, someone who can strategize. I think Jack Stars should work with Eddie Dennis. Someone who can get his mind right. Someone who can get his head in the game. That's what he needs.
First of all, Eddie Dennis does not even know Jack Stars is alive. You're like, who? And second of all, hey, look, man, Piper Niven, you said yourself, had title opportunities. Jack Stars never has. So would not that be a come up in that certain way?
Well, I mean, come on. I guess technically, I gotta give you that, but no one.
Quiet, Flap. I don't want to hear your guff.
Yeah, no one wants to train and work hard to be like the Cincinnati Bengals showing up to the first round of the playoffs and then getting bumped every year. You want to train to be the very best. You want to go with the Tom Brady's. You want to go with the LeBron Jameses. You want to go with the Eddie Dennises. Those guys are all a part of the same club. And I think that's where Jack Stars needs to be looking.
You do not compare Tom Brady and LeBron James to Eddie Dennis. Lamb also agrees with you for some reason. Eddie Dennis is the man on NXT UK. Yeah. Not saying he's not the man, but I just don't see Jack Stars and Eddie Dennis tag teaming anytime soon. So flame in the chat if you want to. I'm just
I mean, Eddie Dennis is a busy guy. Eddie Dennis has a lot of important things to deal with. He may not have time for Jack Stars, but if I'm Jack Stars, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm looking.
Moving on, man. In our opening contest, the number one contender for the Heritage Cup, Tyler Bate takes on Noam Dar in a match that surprisingly went back and forth. On paper, thought Tyler Bate was going to walk away with this one on a cakewalk. He got the first pinfall. I thought it would be kind of a done deal, but Noam Dar showing a lot of promise and why he should be in that conversation, not just as a hilarious talk show segment, but rather how he's able to translate that in the ring. Shaw Samuels is around, Trent Sevens is around. It's a whole big, as my mom would say, rigmarole. Thoughts about the match, thoughts about the fallout. Give me everything.
This is how you know that this division is alive and well. People having a Heritage Cup rules match for the number one contendership. And I know it sounds really simple, like it's not a big special thing, and every division has number one contendership matches, but they don't. And it's something you see that when a division's struggling, this is what they're lacking. People who aren't the champion having matches to determine who will get the next shot at the champion. So this is actually a much bigger deal than what I think a lot of us look at on paper at first. This is a division really forming itself and carving itself out. Tyler Bate, he just looked bigger and stronger than ever. And I have to say, he may not be a big, strong boy anymore. It may be time for him to be a big, strong man.
That sounds creepy.
I was hypnotized by him today.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought it was great how Noam Dar was actually really resilient and really smart. I thought that his reversal from that rebound off the ropes into the leg lock was really beautiful. Unfortunately, for as good and smart and as underrated as Noam Dar is, it wasn't enough for him to overcome the numbers game as Trent Seven was at ringside and cost Supernova 11 a shot at A-Kid for the Heritage title. That was disappointing, but I think he had a good showing, and Tyler Bate is going to put on a great match with A-Kid.
He said hypnotized, y'all. Hypnotized.
You said that was creepy just a little too early. You should have.
Yeah, I know. I totally traveled it. I apologize. But Lamb actually continues and says the Heritage Cup and rules match has really brought a fresh thing to the roster. Now, we talked about this before because this is kind of like new to both of us. I mean, Heritage Cups are like a whole bygone era. Thoughts about it? You being more of a newer fan to the sport, brand, whatever.
Yeah, this is why, a lot of times as wrestling fans, we become very jaded and we hate things before they even get a chance to show themselves. And I almost felt that way about the Heritage Cup when it first came out and they first started talking about it, and they were talking about rounds and time limits and points and the rules. And it was very confusing. And I was thinking, just let these guys wrestle. Let's just let them have a match. Who cares? What is all this? It's confusing. But very quickly in that first tournament, you get the hang of the rules and you realize it's really fun. It's a totally different ball game. The whole thing plays out differently. The stress moments are so different, and the mind games of it all. And like, for instance, today, the way that Tyler Bate spun Noam Dar until the bell rang and then went right back into it afterwards was such a fun moment that you would never see in a regular match because the match isn't set up that way. True. Seeing things like guys tapping out quickly to save themselves for later rounds or trying to do different things here and there, it creates an entirely different approach. And as mentioned by Lamb in the chat, it's a different. It makes it fresh. It makes it different, and it gives guys a chance to do things. And as you know, I'm not a fan of weight limit rules, and so I think this is a great way to give people of all different shapes and sizes a different championship.
Bad acceptance. I respect this.
A different way to compete for championships that just have their own vibe.
Yeah, it's true. Weight classes are kind of odd in wrestling because there is a whole thing of like weight divisions like boxing, but wrestling used to always inflate weights. Like, remember when the cruiserweight title was 225 and below? Like, it was a whole different pot of pumpkin. That's another my mom's saying. I'm just going nuts with those. I usually do. Yeah, it's a whole other pot of pumpkin. You know, I usually say those for a Rocket League cast because the people love that homespun stuff. But I don't know why I'm doing it in wrestling today. I thought it was
the homespun.
Yeah, you know, let's take a gander, y'all. I think the match was great. I didn't like the fact that A-Kid looked like he was in prison, but he looks on to see who will be the number one contender. Tyler Bate versus A-Kid 2. Will this be a different result?
I don't know. You know, I'm going to say no. I'm going to predict A-Kid because I have too many times predicted against A-Kid, thinking that his run was done, that he was a fluke, but every time he proves me wrong, every time he shows up and shows out, I'm going to just quit taking the L's. I'm going to start taking the dubs, and I'm going to start backing A-Kid.
And Eddie Dennis.
Because I like winning.
Next week, two announcers already in match. Saxon Huxley versus Nathan Frazier and Kenny Williams versus Amir Jordan. Both of these stories have a little bit of spice on, especially with Amir Jordan. He's looking for revenge. He's looking for retribution. Does he get it?
Oh, Amir Jordan now wants to be aggressive.
I walked right into this.
He wants to do all this. I mean, where was this fired up Amir Jordan a week ago? Maybe if he had this kind of attitude a week ago, he'd be a tag team champion. Instead, he's just some guy messing up poor people's like backstage situations. They're just trying to do their jobs. He comes running through, flipping over tables and things. Why doesn't he do that while he's in a match, in a ring, not with people just trying to do their jobs, just trying to get finished up so they can go home to their families, Amir? Instead, you got Kenny Williams. He knows how to channel his energy. He knows how to do things the right way, and that's why he's going to do so well. If I was Amir Jordan, I'd be looking for a place to hide because Kenny Williams doesn't fake the killer instinct. Kenny Williams has the killer instinct.
I got to jump in here. Look, I understand that why they decided to break up. There was a difference in philosophy. Happens to a lot of couples. Divorces happen. Their rate of tag teams about 100%. Get that. But how was Amir Jordan the bad guy here? Look, Kenny Williams can win next week. I'm not saying he's not going to win, but how is Amir Jordan the bad guy? Because he doesn't want to use a foreign object to win a match. Is that not the whole spirit of competition on a brand that actually says, hey, look, we care about heritage so much, there's a second division for it? Why is Amir Jordan the bad guy in your opinion?
Flobo, this is a business that allows you to cheat for up to 4 seconds in a match. Of course he should have used the whatever means he can to win. That's what you do. You think Pretty Deadly get paid less because they win certain ways? No. That's what you do. You do whatever it takes to win. The fact that he's now trying to act like now it's time to be aggressive, that's the problem. And the real reason, the biggest reason I consider him a bad guy, a ne'er-do-well, someone I'm not excited about, is those guys standing by in the building were just working on stuff. They were just trying to get their job done. You've been in the office late, working hard. Could you imagine if someone just walked in right now and just started knocking all your papers off your desk and knocking all your notes away and said, hey, I got to look for someone else who's not even related to you two because I'm crabby about something that happened a week ago?
To be fair, the entire roster does that. Like, everybody does that. It's like speeding in the freeway. Everyone does it. Like, come on. You got to go with the flow of traffic, man. You got to flip a couple tables to get title shots and matches. That's how it's done. There's no contract signed to regular matchups. You destroy furniture. And so this guy is like, okay, fine. You have a match. That's how it works. I'm sorry.
I've never seen a lot of people do that. I think Amir Jordan was just being a jerk. But You're right. Sid Scala does actually create matches, and he does put things together. I wonder if old William Regal has ever thought about doing that.
If this is your first time watching or listen to Draped and Gold, Jack somehow loves Eddie Dennis, wants William Regal fired, agrees with Johnny Gargano and says he's cuckoo bananas. I don't know what kind of upside down you do it just to troll me. Because on Wednesday nights I say this sucks, I don't like this, and on Thursday like I'm gonna get you, and totally says you want to fire with the best and greatest general manager we have actively. You're writing it down on your list. He's got the book. He's got the book. Lamb continues. Poor Kenny Williams. His friend didn't have his back when Williams only wanted to win titles for them both.
Yes.
I guess Lamb's a Jack Farmer guy, and that's okay. No one's perfect.
Listen, but you're closer to perfect if you're a fan of me. I'm just saying, like, if we were in a match together and we had the titles within our grasp and you didn't pull the trigger, you'd be the jerk, not me.
It's an athletic contest. You can win it the right way. Moving on, the night one of Stand Deliver NXT Prime. It was a cool experience having a 2-night pay-per-view because it was kind of a hybrid thing. It wasn't just like a Great American Bash or Hollywood Havoc. It's going to be on Peacock exclusively today. Night one, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what we saw, just overall thoughts of the show.
I loved it. I thought this was such a good show. And
tell me why.
I know that it wasn't like the old, it wasn't like the old days where it was a packed arena, but having more fans there did help a lot. And I have to say this, it touched me, Flobo. I really felt it. I loved it to my core when they played the American National Anthem on guitar live. It took me right back to before lockdowns and quarantines and no fans and all this other stuff. It's something we haven't done in wrestling so long, and it just felt so nice. And the digital setup was just amazing, from the way the screens lit up certain ways at certain times into that deadly game Skull making a comeback. They pulled it out of the warehouse. They put it in here and they lit it up. It looked great. The whole thing was done so well. I was thinking to myself, man, imagine if they were able to do this on a bigger scale. Imagine what will happen when they're able to do this in bigger arenas and really flex those production muscles. It looked amazing.
I can't remember wrestling with fans. It's too far ago. Is that before Tiger King? I have no idea. No, I agree with you. I thought it was a cool experience. And much like WWE, they're finding ways to make their WrestleMania formula work for them. Like, they have the bigger entrances, and they're also having musical guests. I think tonight Poppy is going to be on the brand, which I basically got a crash course of Poppy last night. I had no idea she existed. So I felt like an old man being like, oh, I'm doing this for wrestling journalism. Yeah, that's it. So I like the fact they're finding the way to make that work. And the Deadly Game Skull, deep cut, 98 reference, I'll allow it. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Lamb also agrees with you. And Adam, too. Stand deliver indeed. Only night one, baby. And Adam says amazing takeover. So let's have a top down. A match that it shows you how stacked this card was the opening contest where the self-proclaimed greatest technical wrestler, Pete Dunne, took on the self-proclaimed greatest technical wrestler in Kushida in a one-on-one matchup, which Pete Dunne walks away with the win here. A little bit surprising, but not in the way you're thinking. But before I get to that, Jack, what do you think of the match?
The little things throughout this match and the overall smoothness of everything was just beautiful. This was a wrestling fans kind of match that delivered on everything it promised. And I loved how this match became about who the best technical wrestler in the world was. And that was how they let it break down throughout the entire match. Like, sure, there was a few headbutts, there was a couple kicks and that kind of thing. But at its core, this was a technical masterclass. Huge win for Pete Dunne here. And I think he earned himself a date in that ring with someone who has a championship very soon. I also think that this must have been past Kushida, because if it was future Kushida, he would have known he was going to lose and he wouldn't have called himself the best. I forgot about the Kushida slander also. I forget you hate Kushida and his time traveling stuff. I don't hate Kushida and his time traveling stuff. I'm just trying to keep it right. Keep it in order here. If it was future Kushida, he would know he loses the best technical wrestler in the world match. And so he would have said the second best technical wrestler in the world.
I apologize for trampling your joke a second time today, but the match itself was okay. But it was surprising for two reasons. One, at the same time in Jacksonville, it was Max Caster leading off the show for AEW. What I thought was kind of like the present and future kind of feel. I deal with Max Caster as like a little appeal to a lot younger fans. So that was kind of cool that both brands are putting their younger guns up top. But I do think Pete Dunne was the right one to win this one. But where does Pete Dunne go from here? Because to your point, I do think Pete Dunne is ready to take on for the NXT Championship, but he's been a 3 or 4-time number one contender to the NXT Championship, but has never won the big one. Does it happen sooner rather than later?
Whether or not it's the big one, it's tough to say, because that seems like it's going to be locked up for a while. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw him go after that North American title sometime soon, or maybe even just find a buddy to tag up with and start going after those tag team titles. But one way or another, he should be in a championship conversation. I don't think there's any way to argue or deny that he deserves that shot. He's earned it.
So going back to your theory about, or the Cody Rhodes theory about the primes, Pete Dunne is in his mid-20s, before what Cody said is a true prime of a professional wrestler. But what room does Pete Dunne have to grow? I mean, except for going to the main roster. NXT UK is too small for him. He seems to be a variable, reliable handle NXT right now, but I don't really see him in any picture or any title picture personally right now.
Well, he's not technically in a title picture right now. Obviously, we just had a gauntlet eliminator match. We have a number of contenders for that NXT title. You're right. He could go to a main brand. I mean, he's young. He's got plenty of time to do a lot of things. But right now, the world's his oyster. You can put him anywhere, and he's going to stand out, whether it be on, as we say, the main roster, whether it's SmackDown or Raw. I think he's got a style where he stands out and he's recognizable, and he would stand out amongst all the big personalities on those brands. I think if he stayed in NXT, he'll get that shot at the NXT title eventually. Like I said, it's just kind of tied up right now. Same with the NA title, but I mean, he'll snap fingers until he gets one of them. Like I said, I'd kind of like to see him maybe hop into that tag team division, maybe do some fun there.
Where's your boy Pat McAfee when you need him?
Pat McAfee, if him and Pat McAfee were a team, if they decided to tag team, unstoppable. You
son of.
I mean, they might not even have to tag. They would just flip a coin, see who's going to go in the ring, and they would just do it basically as a handicap match and win from there.
Not going to engage. Not going to do it. Nope. Moving on.
Do it for the brand.
There is no brand. They haven't been on TV in North American title gauntlet eliminator match here, where the winner gets a title shot against Johnny Gargano on the way tonight or the day after on Stand and Deliver Night 2. The winner, which kind of was a favorite in my opinion, was the colossal Bronson Reed, outlasting other men. And even though we had some individual effort from LA Knight and Leon Ruff and even Swerve's house, it was Bronson Reed moving on. 2 questions for you. Does Bronson Reed have a chance against Gargano tomorrow? And 2, you keep telling me it's Swerve's house, but again, it's on his back looking up the lights. What gives?
Well, first, I do want to talk about Bronson Reed. I mean, he came out looking like an absolute colossal star. He hit Swerve and Ruff with a German suplex at the same time. That's beyond just the word impressive. He outlasted everybody. He definitely felt like the guy that should be winning this match. He did everything he was supposed to. He won. I think his match with Gargano is going to be fantastic. I think he has everything you need to win that match tonight. I mean, the only thing going against him is he might be a bit worn down after everything he's had to go through just to get here. But he feels like someone who would be a great person as the North American champion, assuming he can beat Johnny Gargano. In fact, I didn't want to tip my hand too much, but I want to see Bronson Reed versus Pete Dunne for the NA title down the road.
That would be a match and a half. Tsunami against Bitter End. I would love to see that one. That's definitely a takeover worthy. I would buy that takeover worthy match merchandise. Yeah, give me all that. But that just means your boy Johnny Gargano will have to take a back seat. But it'll start tomorrow. Does this start tomorrow night? Does Johnny Gargano just lose it because of Regal's cuckoo bananas gauntlet eliminator scheme? Does he ride off into the sunset or does he retain?
I mean, it's very unfair, the situation that Johnny Gargano finds himself in. As mentioned, he should have at least a week to prepare. He's just finding out that he has to have a match with Bronson Reed. For all he knows, he was about to have a match with Cameron Grimes or an LA Knight or a Dexter Loomis. It could have been a bunch of people.
Right,
but now he has to, prepare for someone like Bronson Reed, someone who's not easy to prepare for, by the way. Sure. It's not like he's just an average-sized person with an average move set, right? Like
an average guy named Colossal would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
I'm the Colossal Jack Farmer. Okay, go ahead.
That does sound like something one of the Crash Holly would go by.
Oh, yeah, the super heavyweight?
The super heavyweight.
Well over 400 pounds.
So I think it's just unfair that Johnny Gargano has to deal with this. It's unfair that Johnny Gargano now has to scramble the game plan. Where do you find someone that fits the description of a Bronson Reed to practice with and to study? He had to study all these people. He probably didn't get a wink of sleep all week trying to study 12 different people up to this point. So it's completely unfair. The deck is stacked against him. William Regal, cuckoo bananas, 100%. William Regal needs to start looking to Johnny Saint, who just makes things simple, just makes good matches, and actually makes the matches instead of letting the inmates run the asylum the way that William Regal does with NXT. That's what you need to do. I do want to say though, before I miss my opportunity, I got to defend Swerve. You took a shot at Swerve.
I will every time.
But Swerve proved that he understands better than anybody that wrestling is a business. He did. Because he's the only person that walked out of that match with a loss, but more money than he had when he went into it. Because he, unlike everyone else, he took the money from Cameron Grimes. I don't know why everyone doesn't do that. Anytime Cameron Grimes pulls out a wad of cash, take the money. Swerve's the only one that was like, yeah, I'll take the money. So if this is a business and it's about making money, then Swerve won. He did better than he doesn't even have to work tonight, and he still got paid. Swerve is the man.
So many different things wrong with that. Before I get to Swerve, though, about Bronson Reed and John Gargano, you're right. Maybe it is kind of unfair for your boy Johnny to have to prepare with so many people. But you can argue that Bronson Reed went through a whole match the night before. So I don't think it's that much of an unfair issue. But Swerve, look, money is great. That's what we do it for. We're here not to make friends and all that. But frankly, when you come out there with money one time, there's going to be an opportunity and chance when you're out there losing every time you go out there that no one's going to put you on TV to get paid off by Cameron Grimes. You're going to be seen as behind as Cameron Grimes goes, to the moon, Jack Farmer. Woohoo! So this might be his only last stand. Unless Swerve starts getting some wins, some W's, so he can be justified of being in these kind of matches.
I'm just saying, last week, both Dexter Lumis and LA Knight had the opportunity to grab some money, make some extra cash, and they both turned it down. But look where they are now. They're still in the same spot, but they could have had money in their hand. Swerve, he knew what he was doing. Swerve took the money. Swerve, you're a smart guy. I love the way you do business. Keep it up.
Swerve's lame. Moving on. We had ourselves a second NXT United Kingdom Championship defense in 18 hours as Walter takes on Tommaso Ciampa. And this one had a chop count about 7 or 8, give or take, because some of those are like love chops, so you couldn't tell if they counted or not. Now, you guys know how I feel about Tommaso Ciampa, so I always know my Tommaso Ciampa commentary is a little bit biased or based. But I will say this, and I don't ask you this as someone who's way more objective to me when it comes to something like that. Every other time there's been a Walter match, it has been a brutal contest of wits that tells a good story, and you feel pretty much relieved when it's done because you went through so much as a participant. I did not feel it this time. What happened?
Well, I just want to say, you could call them a love chop all you want, but they still look like they're the worst thing that you can take. I'm going to say this, man. I love, right from the beginning, I love the big fight announcement in the ring with the ceiling mics.
Absolutely.
It felt so great. Ciampa has to be in the best shape of his life, which is saying something because he looked shredded to the bone last night.
Got a haircut, too.
Walter, maybe that's what it was. It was just the haircut. But Walter doing his best King Kong impression, just climbing all over the place and beating the tar out of Ciampa and even chopping the announce desk in half. Ciampa gave a really good effort and really took a chop in here, but man, Walter's brutality personified. And that's another one of those things we say in pro wrestling a lot, but Walter, he really means it. He will stomp your throat. He'll throw you over his head and powerbomb you into oblivion. Just smothers people, and in the most simple and brutal way, just has unending offense. I'm just glad the people stateside got to see how unstoppable Walter is, and I hope we get to see Walter face off with other stateside wrestlers. I think it's time for Imperium to invade and properly take over. That was my kind of takeaway from all of this. It's interesting, especially after the Rampage match. You're right. It didn't have that same brutality feel to it that Rampage had, but I still think that Ciampa took a serious chopping throughout this.
Well, I got to give a shout out to Elliot because he did mention something I almost forgot. The story of Walter's hand being clipped momentarily did add a bit of a dimension. It takes me back to Royal Rumble 2019 when Balor faced Brock Lesnar, and Balor kept going for the intestines of Brock, and that was kind of like his weak spot. I thought it was pretty a cool dimension, but ultimately Tommaso Ciampa didn't lose to a power bomb or didn't lose to a splash, but it was a chop. A chop did him in, which seems really weird because a chop would do me in any time. But for some reason in this matchup, it seemed kind of odd.
Yeah, it did feel a bit out of nowhere, didn't it? Especially considering, as Elliot mentioned, the damaged hand that Walter had throughout the whole time. It was definitely especially because there's so many big moves that happened right before it, like that suplex that I would have called like a reverse Tazplex back in the day. I don't know, I can't remember what the official term is for that suplex, but that seemed like such a big move to just then go get chopped right afterwards. Yeah. This seemed kind of abrupt, but I think maybe that's the story, is that when you have someone who's just chopping away the way someone like Walter does, eventually one of those chops is going to put you out, and I think that's maybe what happened. Yeah,
well, I guess you could do the whole Thanos thing and chop the head. That would have been a lot easier. But yeah, it was a good match between both men. If you're not a UK viewer, if you haven't seen Dragunov, if you haven't seen Tyler Bate, you're going to be completely satisfied with this match. I do think there's other options out there, but it just kills me. No, in a good way. It's amazing that the United Kingdom title was the one title being defended twice on two different shores. Like it's like almost like it's proven its worth as a world championship, even though it is technically not one. Just the fact that it was defended in two different countries, two different continents in the same week.
Doesn't that make it a world title if it was defended on multiple continents?
Classically, yes, it will make it a world title in that way. However, there is like the standing thing where how it feels to fans. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like a world title. But yes, you're right. The fact that it has been defended internationally will make it a world title. Absolutely.
It's what I loved about it is that statement, though, in a way where what I think what NXT is doing right now with UK and with NXT, especially for those of us who are really watching, especially what we'll really see tonight when the Cruiserweight title is on the line, is that you have these two brands that are so different and so uniquely their own, but now getting to see them compete against each other. I don't mean to take any shots at the main roster or anything like that, but
do it.
I want to see these two have a Survivor Series match. I want to see these two have a bragging rights showdown down the road. NXT Absolutely. Versus NXT UK. That to me sounds very interesting because they are so different and they're people that you don't get to see cross paths very often. This is fascinating. And I can definitely see a future where we see multiple NXT brands across the world having a true World Cup down the road.
Before the lockdown, I was a huge advocate for Worlds Collide 2020, just because of that atmosphere, because it was a rowdy UK crowd sensibilities and their styles and NXT styles. I think that's the future. And I think it was the last week or the week before, I said the dream of I always wanted to have is something like that, just a non-canon, just night. I feel like it can't be a pay-per-view because we have to expect things, but a Saturday night where you just have any kind of wrestler versus wrestler, brand versus brand, an open kind of thing, open exhibition to really show the talents and why each individual wrestler or superstar is great at what they do. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, I was doing a little fantasy booking in my head. It's always a dangerous game, but just, in your head, you kind of go, wow, we are throwing it back. I was thinking, what if Bronson Reed did win the North American Championship, and then on pay-per-view, we got the United Kingdom champion Walter versus the North American champion Bronson Reed, head-to-head, one-on-one, battle of the continents.
I like it.
And then those two would just beat the hell out of each other.
I could just imagine the pub cams in like Mexico and Canada. Like, you can do it, Bronson. Watching intently and stuff. Why not? I'd be down for that.
As I'd be like, go Walter, and like, Jack, you're American.
He's like, I've changed sides, Imperium.
I'm not just a turncoat, I'm a turn red coat.
That's a deep cut an American Revolutionary War reference. We are classy. We're getting that Peabody.
You thought the Deadly Games reference was old. Just you wait.
To it by sea. I like it, man. I'm all about it. But let's talk about championships being crowned and tag team division. MSK, JYV, Legado del Fantasma, which they don't really have a acronym name, but MSK, the new tag team champions, which I guess I should be satisfied. But at the same time, I said, well, I felt like it was GYV's championship opportunity to lose. And, well, they lost. I don't know, Jack Farmer. Maybe JYV is not all it's cracked up to be. Or maybe I'm just too quick on the draw.
They're definitely becoming bridesmaids here. And I will say, watching this match, though, this match was so fast and so fun. It made it impossible for me to be a pro. And I actually didn't really take a whole lot of notes. I was just in it. I was watching it. I was having fun, having the time of my life. I think MSK are going to be a really fun, really great pair of champs. And I'm happy to see them have the titles. I think that they're going to have great one-on-one defenses against both of these teams down the road. I agree. I definitely feel like the grizzled young veterans need to find a way to bounce back, because almost in a way like a Pete Dunne, they're becoming that team that keeps getting shots and keeps falling just short. But I do want to give some style points to Legado del Fantasma for the coming out in the mask. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, yeah. Their merch just has that on.
Yeah, I mean, this was just a fun, really good match. I think MSK just reminded me of that team that if I was like a kid still, I would love MSK if I was really young. And they remind me of, like, you know, we always talk about how you can see the influence of like an HBK in wrestling. You know, you can always see the influence of a Bret Hart. I look at MSK and I think that's X-Pac. You can see X-Pac in those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just fun. Like I said, I love them now, but I can tell, especially if I was still a kid, I'd be like, that's my team. I would be ride or die for them.
Oh, absolutely. They have a very, I guess it's kind of a bygone era, but a very poster-like a quality about them. Very Hardy Boys in that way, where they have the little hand gestures, and it's an acronym, but we don't know what it stands for and what they are all about, and they love their parents, but they are so edgy and cool. KEWL cool. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I totally see that.
KEWL.
Free team, you would love it.
And there's an X and a Z in there for some reason, because you just got to have those. But I think they're great. It's amazing just how quickly they came into NXT and are already the champions, already Dusty Cup winners. They are already the most decorated tag team in NXT right now, and they've only been here for like 2 months.
Well, you know what? You hit the nail on the head. Let's talk about this for a second. I know we have a lot of stuff to cover, but like for a long time in 2020, and you can blame the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, there really was an issue of the lack of bolstering the roster. There was a top card for sure, or there was a main event scene, but it kind of was like, okay, who are we going to get on this roulette of fun until 6:45 p.m. Pacific? But what I've seen, almost the credit of NXT as a brand or a writing staff or a culture, whatever you have, is that their ability to take in really new characters and make them make sense within that world. If you never saw Sean Ricker or Eli Drake, you know what he's about. Zoe Stark, MSK, or even putting in Shotzi Blackheart with Ember Moon. Ember Moon came back, and I'll admit it was kind of a flat response, but teaming with Shotzi was a whole different thing. Like, to be able to work under those constraints in a short time, I know it sounds like I'm gushing, but like, I'm a writing person. The fact that the characters are written that way says a lot about that brand and the depth they have. So.
No other company, brand, whatever you want to call it, is able to more quickly get across their wrestlers and their people that quickly, that well, and make them go from unknown to household name as well as NXT does. And I always compare NXT to college sports, and you always roll your eyes at me. And I always try to say, I don't say it in a negative way. I say it in a positive way, because I always say like the best coaches in basketball and football are the ones in college, because they don't get to keep their players forever. They don't get to, unlike Bill Belichick getting to keep Tom Brady for almost 20 years, in college, if you have a great quarterback, they're taken away from you. In college, if you have a great center, taken away from you. Point guard, taken away from you. If they're great, you don't get to keep them very long. And that's kind of a situation that NXT finds itself in, where it's got to constantly find ways to replace the great players they have, because the great players they have are constantly moved away from them. And they've got it down to a science. They know how to develop, get people up and going, and get people moving so quickly. Even someone, as you had mentioned, like LA Knight, who is a star. We know him from other places. He's been around for a long time. He's got a lot. But I think it's harder than we think to just take someone like him and plug him into your system and have him work right away the way that NXT was able to do almost overnight. Like, they are so good at just plugging people in and getting them going. It's incredible.
The analogy is always flawed because of NXT's college sports, AEW, AAA baseball. But moving on, Io Shirai takes on Raquel Gonzalez, the women's championship battle, which, look, man, it was hard to see who was going to win this one, but I think Raquel tipped her hand because she walked out smiling, and I knew it. She was going to win it, but she did it. We all said that she was an unstoppable force, movable object, whatever. Io Shirai tried her hardest, but Raquel Gonzalez is the new NXT women's champion. Jack Farmer, was now the right time to have a new women's champion? Was it too early? Was it too late? How do you feel?
This just had that big fight feel. And I know I'm going through all the cliches, Flobo, but I just feel that they're so perfect. Neither of these women are the future. They are the here and the now. This match felt like I was watching Batman take on Bane. Just two warriors going at it. As big and as strong as Raquel Gonzalez is, Io Shirai was able to fly and fight. And no matter how on point Io Shirai was throughout the match, Raquel was still able to power through and battle back. Io Shirai coming off of that skull is a replay that is gold, and we will probably see it again and again and again. And we should see it again and again and again. And the fact that Io Shirai hit the moonsault after that and still wasn't able to get the win shows just how incredible Raquel Gonzalez is, with a series of choke slams on the outside and the inside, with the biggest of the wins tonight was her night, and she earned it. And whether she was smiling early or smiling late, she can do whatever she wants. She is your new NXT Women's Champion. And I want to gush and say that I told you so, because I said it all along. This was the one to do it. But I just thought this was a great match, and I just enjoy it as the match is, with or without predictions.
Fair enough. I mean, we kind of saw it coming. It was a matter of when. But the match was dope. I thought it was really cool. Lamb, as he says this, pinned Io Shirai at War Games match, defeated Rhea Ripley at last women's standing match, won the Dusty's Women's Cup, being the first NXT Women's Tag Champions. That is build up and build up.
Mm-hmm.
It build up it was. And I definitely opens up more stories for Raquel Gonzalez. I'm not sure the Dakota Kai fallout. I'll probably address next week. Io Shirai, rematch, new feud. Does she take a trip up to Stanford? What's her deal?
Like a lot of people, the world is her oyster. I mean, she could walk into any place right now and be a major player. If she wants to say, if she comes back next week on Tuesday and says, NXT, I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to go back for my title, game changing. If she goes to SmackDown, game changing. Raw, game changing. NXT UK, game changing. You know what I'd like to see, though? I'd like to see, I don't care how quickly this would happen. I don't care how to the moon this is.
Tell me.
I want to see her walk into WrestleMania and have a match with Bayley. I want to see those two throw down, biggest stage of them all right off the bat. Let's just see it. Give me what I want. I don't want to wait for it, Flobo. I want that amazing match, and I want it now.
That's what I want. A friend of the show, Cedric Welton, has said, hey, look, Io Shirai better be on Ding Dong Hello in 2 weeks. And I go, yeah, I would love to see Bayley versus Shirai. Everyone's asking for it, especially Bayley herself. I don't see why they wouldn't make that happen. But good run. I mean, over the summer, during the back half of the pandemic lockdown months, Io Shirai was class of her division. It's not a bad thing. She's not over. She's not buried, as the people have said in the chats and all that stuff. A lot of bright future ahead for her because she is the genius of the sky. But Jack Farmer,
she's one of the pillars of the people that, sorry to interrupt you, she's one of the pillars of the people that held up pro wrestling during the crowdless days for WWE.
Yeah,
I believe.
I would say Bayley, Asuka, Io Shirai, on those side, definitely. Well, depending on how you look at it, because there was months where we saw Apollo Crews out there, and I'm a bigger Apollo Crews fan. I was like, but yeah, definitely the women's division really held up a lot of the brands during the No Crowd era. Sure. But tonight's Night 2, the Deliver of Stand and Deliver. Here's a rundown of the card. And we go through predictions or whatever you want just on that. Johnny Gargano takes on Bronson Reed for the North American title. The Way, the female side, Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae taking on Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon for the Women's Tag Team Championships. That's Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin for the NXT Cruiserweight title. Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross. Oh, sorry. And that Cruiserweight title match is a ladder match, by the way. Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross for the NXT title. And I guess the main event is this unsanctioned match between Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole, because it'd be weird if an unsanctioned match happened in the middle of the show. Whatever.
Yeah.
Thoughts about the second night of Stand and Deliver?
This is going to be so good. Every time you mentioned a match, I was like, you mentioned like 3 matches. I was like, yeah, that's going to be a great card. And then you'd add another one. I was like, oh, yeah, that one. Oh, man, that one. So many good matches here. I always get a little bad taste in my mouth when it's not the title closing out the show. But I do think that Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly are going to just have an amazing match.
Well, hold on. Does it matter which title? I'm curious. Does it matter which title ends the show? It has to be the world title, the men's world title, the women's world title. Does that matter?
It can be either men or women's world title, especially in NXT. Those are definitely equal footing.
It's clarifying.
No, it's a fair question. To be fair, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would say the men's world title, because the way they were presented at the time.
Absolutely.
But now, without question, I think either or could close out the show. But that said, I also look, there's also a lot to Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole. It's not like it's just some random match get thrown in on the end there. So I'm not bummed. I'm not really bummed, but you know what I'm saying. There's kind of that, you make exceptions for it, but you kind of like to see the title at the end.
Yeah.
That said, there are so many great matches on this show, so many that are very hard to predict. I think, though, my match of the night, I think it's going to be the match of the week. It's going to be Santos Escobar versus Jordan Devlin. I think first, it's a ladder match, and those are always crazy. Second, it's 2 fantastic wrestlers going at it who are just in their primes, crushing it every time they go out there. It's for a title that both guys have held forever. And also, it's kind of a battle of the brands. It's kind of who's the real champ? There's a lot on the line. There's bragging rights. There's which is the NXT UK Cruiserweight Champion the guy? Is it the NXT Cruiserweight Champion? Who is the guy? Who's the brand? There's a lot on this. It's actually a very big, high-stakes match, and really zero way to call which way it's going to go. This is the hardest one to predict because there's nothing you can think about. Like, there's no aftermath that you can think of. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's incredible. That to me, that match, Santos Escobar, Jordan Devlin, Cruiserweight Championship on the line, that to me is the epitome of what pro wrestling's all about.
Or as Shia LaBeouf says, the epitome. I agree with you, Jack. I think that ladder match will definitely be the one we're talking about because it does feel like a comic book storyline. It's like, imagine if Superman was dead and 4 other Supermen showed up and they claimed to be the real Superman, and you have to battle to see which one is legit. Charlene says, O'Reilly Cole had a fabulous storyline, which, yeah, they've been doing it, in 3 or 4 different promotions, ROH and PWG, and Ask Fancy where you were Monday night, probably chilling somewhere.
Watching Raw. Where were you?
Adam Gazia, the Escobar Elite action figure looks amazing. Well, because he is a specimen, a physical specimen, the best hand I've ever seen. I love his hair. I love his style. And tea versus coffee. I'm a coffee guy myself.
I'm a coffee guy. I'm trying to make the move to tea. I'm just trying out more. Oh, Charlene's asking because you had after hours.
I have after hours every Monday night.
But you had the old crew on there.
What old crew?
Didn't you? You had
I had James Lott Jr., Josh Alonso, and Leslie Colon. Yeah. Yeah,
you had the old ABTV crew.
Well, Jack, if you are Hispanic, we can have you on that panel next time.
See.
He made it awkward back. All right, but I'm just saying, it's going to be a nice show tonight. I'm looking for that ladder match. Definitely looking for the NXT title. I do think, even though Karrion Kross seems to be the number 1 contender and he's on the path to win it, I really think Balor's current run is good, but he needs something to push over to the next level, in my opinion. And even I'm a big Balor fan. It's been pretty B+. I won't say the word mid that the kids say in the streets, but I do think he needs one more fantastic match to solidify. So you can be like, Pete Dunne, beat him. Karrion Kross, beat him. I want to do the super list when it's all said and done.
This is a bit of a, you're right. This is kind of he needs that statement win. Balor needs that win in this reign that shows that he was a real champ. And he's beaten a lot of great wrestlers, but they've all been kind of sidetracked with other things, whether it be Adam Cole or Kyle O'Reilly, sort of going through the breakup of the Undisputed era. Pete Dunne, it was kind of like him still kind of with the brand and what's he doing with all that. This is the first real legitimate threat that has nothing else. Like, this is all it's about, becoming the champion. And it's another situation of a guy who never lost the title versus a guy who's now the champion. So you're right. That's going to be a big one. Hopefully
that Balor retains, because I'm not sold on Champion Cross, even though I was willing to accept it, even though he won it in a kind of an awkward fashion against Keith Lee. But that to me will be like the pillars here. Those three matches: cruiserweight, ladder match, the NXT title, and the Insaction match, and a runaway. But as I say, the card is weak. It's going to be dope. Exclusively on Peacock. The WWE Network did shut down. I got my refund on Monday. The WWE Network is no more in the United States. And so if you're in England or if you're in Europe with your network, don't rub it in, because I'm still trying to transition it or whatever. Jack Farmer, before we get out of here, because we're at an hour, it's now time for my favorite part of the show. It's the MVP of NXT. Anyone out there? I mean, I see it as an obvious choice this week, but anyone out there, either brand that made it happen for you in either brand, NXT or NXT UK?
I don't think it's as obvious as you think it is. I think we both have the same person, but I think there's a few people that could contend. But I have to give it to Walter. Walter had two big matches, two big title defenses, back to back, night to night, two different continents, two different brands, defended both in big fashion. If winning the title or defending a title is a big deal, imagine doing it twice on different continents. It's got to be Walter.
Yeah, it's got to be Walter. And the fact that now we got two Walter matches and two title defenses the same week within 18 hours, if we're being technical about it. They were two different styles. It wasn't the same. They were the same moves, but it was definitely remixed. And so Walter does not get enough credit for being diverse in his matchups. But the fact he won with a chop one day and a splash the other day just says a lot about what he can do. And he is like, in his mid-30s? So he's still fairly young, and that's all good. Charlene said,
I looked it up.
Oh, he's younger than I. Okay.
I actually, oddly enough, I was curious and I looked it up myself. But I do want to say, if it's okay, if I'm allowed to piggyback on what you're saying about Walter, yes. I've gushed about him enough already, but I should say, to the untrained eye, and if you've only seen a handful of his matches, you're going to say he has one style of match and he does one thing. But if you watch closely, you're right. He does things differently. He tweaks things differently, and he has different style matches, and he's just got a way of pulling you in and just sucking you into it and making you really into that match and cringe. And like you said, you're like tired after his matches. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's just, and like Jack says, still in his prime, probably do another 10, 15 years if he eats right and starts shopping people out and practicing and reinforcing his joints, all that stuff. But yeah, it's about time to get out of here, Jack. We got so much more wrestling to watch. I just finished the Hall of Fame. I gotta watch. I didn't watch Dark this week or Elevation this week, and it's Dead and Delirious Night 2. There's WrestleMania that's 2 nights. Not to mention there's other satellite things that are happening in the independent scene. Here's the deal: I gotta go. But where can the world find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That's the best way to keep up with me. If you're watching wrestling stuff, I'm also a host and interviewer for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood on the United Wrestling Network, which you can check out on KDOC TV here in LA, or you can see on Fight TV or streaming on YouTube, depending on how you like to consume your wrestling. There's lots of different ways to do it, but it's free. Why not check it out? Lots of great stuff going on there. And you can also check me out hosting the Anytime radio show. We count down the top 10 songs of the week, as well as throwing a few other fun ones in there as well along the way.
And the merch.
And I got a new shirt. So check that out, realjackfarmer.threadless.com, or you can just click on the link at www.anytimeradio.com.
Dang. Enterprise mogul doing that thing. Radio host, DJ. What doesn't he do? Bow tie tire. I mean, this guy does it all. Yeah, it's swagged out, bro. Yeah, it's your boy Flobo. I'm going to watch WrestleMania 35 in between to get back into the whole WrestleMania season. So I'm going to squeeze that in there too. Follow me at flobito.com, newamsterdam.com. That's K-N-A-W, Amsterdam.com. And of course, this show, Draped in Gold. We'll be back next week with not only NXT action, NXT UK action, but the second night results of Stand Plus Deliver. But until next time, Jack Farmer, say the words.
Do your best and be yourself.